Hey, welcome, it's Caleb. In this lesson, we are going to talk about digital systems. This is really the fundamentals to understand binary, data types, and numbers in computers. But before I talk about binary, I was thinking, why do we even need binary? Which, by the way, binary is just 0 and 1s, and we can sequence 0s and 1s together to represent some data. So when you're working with a computer, this might mean something. But I didn't want to go into talking about binary without first understanding why we even need this at all, which this goes back to how computers work and digital systems. Now, this is actually the second lesson in my larger computer science series. I'll have a link to the full course down below, completely free series that you can go through, but I will also have a fundamentals course if you want to learn the fundamentals of programming. So you can check both of those links in the description. The first lesson was really just an overview, and now we're diving into some actual material. So what exactly does it mean by a digital system? And the easiest way to understand this is to compare it to what's not a digital system, which would be an analog system. So we have digital and analog. So when I think of analog, the easiest way to understand it is to think of sound. So we'll go through some examples looking at a sound wave. So you might represent a sound wave on a chalkboard like this. Similar idea for radio waves or any other frequencies, basically vibrations. And we have these perfect curves. If we were to convert this to a digital signal, it wouldn't be perfect like this, but would have very specific values that closely represent this wave. So it might look something like this, where we have these lines that hit at individual points. And what this is doing is it's basically trying to represent that wave, but it's not perfectly continuous. And this is basically the way a computer will work. It'll represent something using specific values, and this is important because it is much more resistant to noise. Think of something like a microphone and an XLR cable. Any kind of electronic signal around that cable could potentially disrupt or destroy that sound. The goal of digital systems is to get the values to be exact, even if it can't perfectly represent reality. It's going to get very, very close. And you could adjust the resolution of this, so you could basically have more or less of these lines. So let me show you another example here. We could have a lower resolution and take less samples, which is going to make this more choppy. And it's probably easier if you draw a line through here like that. So the perfect curve would be the analog, then each one of these marks would be the digital equivalent. If you got rid of the analog line, it would look something like this, to where we kind of have that shape of the wave, but nowhere near as realistic as this one up here, which is much more precise. And if you went into audio engineering, you would learn there's basically two variables we could adjust here. The sampling rate and the bit depth. So the sampling rate is how frequently we snapshot the amplitude of this wave, and then the bit depth is how many different possible values we can represent. So in this example right here, these two are at the same level, and this one is at another level, so we have like 2, 1, 0, 1, and 2. So this is like -1 and -2. -1, 1, 2, 1, -1, -2, -1, 1, 2, 1. So we have a very low number of possible values here. So this will all make sense in a moment of how this translates to binary. But basically, in this example, we have a low bit depth and we have a low sampling rate, giving us a pretty terrible representation of that original sound wave. So we could increase the quality of the signal by increasing the sampling rate and the bit depth, which will give us something more like this, where we have a lot more options in the height, and we do it much more frequently. So with digital systems, we can convert what was originally infinitely curved to a set of certain values. And you can just think of these as different states. We either have -2, -1, 0, 1, or 2. And that's really the fundamental idea of binary. We just need to represent a certain number of possible states using ones and zeros. So when we're talking about binary, instead of thinking of it as just ones and zeros, think of it as a way to represent different states. These states could represent different numbers. It could represent, in this case, different amplitudes on a wave, or it could represent things like colors. What we actually represent doesn't matter. It's just a variety of different states. So let's look at a different example. You might have this binary number. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So this is an 8-bit number. Now, really, any zeros on the left, we don't care about. So you could represent this just like this here. However, it's typically going to be groups of 8, 16, or 32, or 64. So it's very common to have that 0 at the beginning. So the question is, what does this binary number represent? Well, it could be the letter A, it could be the number 65, or it could be a color of dark red-blue. It really comes down to the interpretation. That's how we can use just binary to do everything with computers. It's just about how we interpret that binary. For now, I just want to talk about representing states with binary. So let's talk about binary and how it represents different states. We'll start with just one number, and it's going to be either 0 or 1. This is going to allow us to represent two different things. Basically, 0 could represent something, and 1 could represent something. Now, typically this is going to be false, this is going to be true, but again, it doesn't really matter what we're representing, it's just two different states. So it could be off or on. It could be a number actually 0 or 1. It's just that 0 is usually used to represent false or off. But you can see with 1 bit, we can represent two different states. So either true or false, off or on, 0 or 1, but it's quite limiting. We can only do two things. So it's great if we're working with Boolean data, but that's not always the case. Boolean being true or false. What if we need to represent 3 different states or 4 different states? Then we're required to basically add another bit. Each one of these places is called a bit. So now we could have 0, 0, 0, 1, 1, 0, 1, 1. So now we can represent 4 different states. So if we have 1 bit, it gives us 2 states. If we have 2 bits, it gives us 4 states. If we have 3 bits, it's going to be 8 states. So every time we add a bit, the total possible states doubles. So let's do this with 3 bits. We'll have 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 1, 0, 1, 0, 0, 1, 1, 1, 0, 0, 1, 0, 1, 1, 1, 0, and 1, 1, 1. And then if we had 4 bits, I'm not going to write all those out, that would be 16 states. So every time it doubles, meaning we would get 32, 64, 128, 256, 512, and so forth. That's why you'll see these numbers quite often with computers. It's because computers are built on binary. So this one here is going to be 8-bit, which is really common. That's going to give us 256 different possible values or states. And the formula here to figure out how many different states is to take the bit count and use it for a power of 2. So for example, 2 to the 8, that's going to give us 256. So 2 to the 8 is an important one to know. That's the number of states for an 8-bit number. And then 2 to the 16 is pretty important to know as well, which is 65536. 2 to the 32 is 4294, and I totally have this number memorized, and I'm not pausing the camera for me to check my notes. 967296. And then we have 2 to the 64, which I'm not even going to write out because it's so big. These are the most common ones you're going to see, but you'll see some others, occasionally 128 or 256. But 2 to the 64 gives us enough states that we can represent reality very closely, gives us a lot of possibilities. So most systems are built around 2 to the 64 or 64-bit architectures. And that basically means systems often, and by systems I just mean computers here, they often work in 64 bits. This is called the word size that the system uses. But we can have smaller or larger, so it's not like everything has to be 64-bit, because we could use more or less space in memory. So we'll get into memory and all that jazz later on. For now, let's just talk about what the possible values we can represent with these are. If we're just looking at numbers, there's going to be a max value. So for 2 to the 8, it's going to be 0 to 255, not 256, because we need to use one of those states for 0. So this gives us 256 possibilities, one of them being 0, max being 255. Similar thing here, max value of 65535, and same thing here, 4294, 967, 295. So those are ranges for those different sizes. So if you have something like a 32-bit integer, you should now understand that we can represent numbers 4.2 billion different states. What about negative numbers though? That's where sign bits come up. So let's say we have an 8-bit number. And I'll say numbers when we're working with binary, but that doesn't mean it's always representing a number. So again, states. But when we're learning to work with binary, it's really just a number. Doesn't really matter what the values are. Let's just make sure that there's 8 of them. We don't always use all of the bits for that number or for the set of states. You might use one of them for a special purpose. A common example of this is a sign bit, where this is to decide if this is a positive or negative number, 0 being positive, 1 being negative. So in that situation, we're still going to have the same number of states, but half of them are going to be in the negative, half of them are going to be in the positive. So this would give us negative 128 all the way up to 127. And the reason these aren't exactly the same is because we do have to keep track of a state for 0. The highest positive number is 127, but the lowest negative is going to be negative 128. So basically this range is going to be negative 128 to negative 1. And this range is going to be 0 to 127. We will look at representing negative numbers in more detail in an upcoming lesson, as there's a little bit more involved than what I want to cover here. But I think you get the idea. Basically, we could reserve a bit to then represent positive and negative numbers. So we'll look at that when we get to 2's complement and how computers store negative numbers. For now, all I really want you to take away from this lesson is that binary is a system to represent states. And the more states we have, the closer we can get to what would be the analog value. But there's a lot of benefits to binary, because if you have, let's say, a binary number over here, and you transfer it to some other computer, we can be sure that these are exactly the same. This is not going to have the same issues that analog systems have. And there are complex systems to ensure that the transfer was made correctly. You can do additional research. We'll probably get into some of these topics, but you could have a hash of the data, or you could use checksums. And often in connected systems, there is some way to ensure that the data is being transferred correctly so that we have an exact copy on 2 different systems. So I would say that's the major benefit of binary. If we increase the resolution high enough with a big enough bit size, 64-bit for example, and we have fault tolerance systems that can make sure we transfer data correctly, then we can have predictable data that we can trust that's not going to be affected the same way an analog system would be. And at the core of computing, we have circuits that can either have power being transferred somewhere or not have power transferred somewhere, and that can be represented in binary as well. So if you get into computer engineering and actually building out circuit boards, you will still run into binary and binary simplification, but it's going to be a lot more focused on logic gates and Boolean algebra. Not really my cup of tea or specialization, but it's going to be seen everywhere when we are working with computers. So understanding the importance of it lays a solid foundation for us to now look at binary, the numbering system, and learn the details of that. So that's what we're going to talk about in the next lesson. Basically looking at binary the way most people do, which is just starting with the base and understanding the binary number system. You understand why it's important now? Let's learn the details. Thanks, and I will see you in the next lesson. If you want to get the sequential lesson list or the full course, I'll have a link down below. It's free, so you can just go through that very easily. Thank you. I'll see you in the next one.